Hi everyone, make sure you like and subscribe to DAG's fantastic videos. Just click the button, you won't regret it.
Hey folks, and welcome. So if you're new to my channel, my name's DAG, it's my nickname, and I love aviation. Today we're going to talk about bending plywood. And but first, just briefly, I'm obsessed with giant scale model aircraft, electric. It's got to be more than 150 inches or it doesn't really float my boat. I do fly some ARBs like the Flex Cessna 170, which is my favorite airplane right now. But over the years, everybody's like, why don't you build a real airplane? Well, to build a Kit Fox or an RV is really expensive. But then I thought, what if I build an ultralight? And today we're going to talk about bending some plywood for my ultralight. So, whoops, clicked the wrong button there. So today we're going to say, how do I take a piece of plywood and then bend it like this? Now look, one of the things about my channel is I always try to share with you things that work for me. I don't like to speculate. I don't like to tell you, well, that should work, because there's so much crap on YouTube where people go, oh, we'll try this, and then it doesn't work. So on my channel, you're going to see either what does work or doesn't work for me. But that's not saying there are other ways to do it that might be better. This is just how I do it, okay? Before I get too far into this, I want to do a shout out to my sponsor, RTL Fasteners. If you need servo screws, blind nuts, lock nuts, washers, any of that kind of fastener stuff, they've probably got it. Go to their website. If you spend more than $25 and use the code DAG25, you'll get 25% off your order. It's a pretty kick-ass deal, folks. So before I get into the AirBike, which is my ultralight, and bending this plywood, I have bent a lot of wood in my life, okay? So I know there's going to be trolls, and I've got one troll that always shows up who's going to say, well, you're doing it wrong, or it doesn't work like that, or I'm full of crap. Well, I have bent a lot of wood. Most of the time I use 1 part rubbing alcohol with 10 parts water, spray it down, lather it up. I'll use nails or pins to bend it. I'll let it dry overnight or maybe a couple of days, and then I'll laminate it with epoxy, and it holds its memory in it, okay? So it holds the shape is what I'm trying to say. A couple of things about bending wood that I've learned is that normally when you bend the wood, once you release the rubber bands or whatever you're using, it will want to go back, but it holds some of the memory. And when you're trying to do tight radiuses, that's all you want. And that's one reason that I really dove in so deep on how to bend this plywood. Because once you put epoxy or Gorilla Glue and get everything all lathered up to ready to go together, the last thing you want to do is be bending a piece of wood and it crack. Because then you got to clean all the epoxy off the parts, and it just becomes a pain in the butt. So, and as you can see, I've had a lot of success, bending balsa wood. This is for the leading edge of an aileron. And this is the MSL2, the first wing I designed for it. And excuse me for a minute while I reach over here and grab a treat from my dog and try to give it to him, because he's coming up and bothering me right now. I shouldn't say bother, I love my dog. There you go. So that's how I bent the wood on the leading edge of the aileron. Now, when we talk about the AirBike wing here, this is 1.5 millimeter birch plywood finish, which is FINNISH, which is probably thin enough to bend without wetting. But I had a couple of people get into my head saying, good luck doing that. It's going to break or not work. And as I bent this wood, I realized I probably could have bent it. But like I said earlier, I want that memory to be in there, so when I go to epoxy this all on. So what I did was I bought me some 2-inch foam, and I made basically forms that I could bend my plywood over. So the mixture I use now is water, Windex, and 91% rubbing alcohol, basically. So I go 1 inch of Windex, 1 inch of, ½ inch of the alcohol, and then fill up the rest of my Windex bottle there with water, okay? I know that's not scientific, but that's what I do. So when I first start off, I put some stiffeners down each side of the plywood, because you don't want to have like little bows or little valleys where your rubber band's pulling everything down. So you want stiffeners on each side of what you're going to bend. When I do the initial wetting down on the underneath and the top, it automatically, just gravity makes it want to start bending. Then I use rubber bands kind of loosely to pull it into this shape. I re-wet it, And I let this sit for about an hour. Okay, then I come back after an hour and I start tightening up the rubber bands while I wet it down. And then I start adding more rubber bands. I'm also using rubber bands across the bottom between the two stiffeners. Those little clamps you can see barely. Well, I'll show you. I think I got a better close-up of that in a minute. But essentially, this is how I'm bending it. And then I start piling on some extra stiffeners to pull it together. And actually, I found out as I got to my 4th or 5th skin, leading edge skin, that you really just need to add more rubber bands. You don't need to put those extra stiffeners in. And this is the way I did the first one. And now I'm doing it without even using these two upper stiffeners and rubber bands by just putting on the rubber bands. But as you can see, I got a really good shape here. And I'll explain in a minute why I'm doing this when I probably could have just done this on the leading edge, okay? So you're going to need some sticks, which I'm using some old spruce, 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch. You need some clamps and some rubber bands. You can buy the number 88s on 3 pounds of them on Amazon for like $10 or something. So I've got probably 2,000 rubber bands. This picture shows a little bit better. If you look right over here, if you can see my mouse right there, that's where I run the rubber bands underneath it to help pull the skins together. But now I want to show you, and let me go full screen here. So this right here is your spar spar right here, okay? This thing right here is a clamp block. And what it is for rubber bands to go around, and I'll illustrate this a little bit better in a minute. But this is what those look like. This is what it looks like installed on the wing to hold the plywood down. So I'm going to come back to that in a minute. The other piece of wood I wanted to bend was the leading edge of the aileron. And basically I did it the same way. Wetted it down, have 2 stiffeners, use the rubber band to pull it down. And that worked slick as snot. And then we end up with me basically doing, these are 4 foot long, so I'm doing 4 for the left wing, 4 for the right wing, which the wing's only like 13.5 or 14 feet long, each wing. So I will cut off some excess when I'm done. And then I did some trial fitting here. And here you can kind of see the top and bottom of that block with the rubber bands coming around it. And this is just trial fitting, everybody. Nothing has been glued on. So one thing I do want to let you know is you've got to have a way to cut the plywood. You got to have a way to lay it out. You've got to have a way to just be really precise. So the leading edge of the wing is 1.5 millimeter birch, and the leading edge of the aileron is 0.8 millimeter. And you can find those on aircraft spruce in those sizes. Okay, so now I'm going to kind of show you how the reason I want the memory to be in this wood. So originally the blue there is going to be Gorilla Glue and the green is going to be epoxy. So what I'm going to do when I start this is I'm going to start with a nail in that leading edge piece of spruce that runs all the way down through the ribs with epoxy. Okay. The reason I'm going to use Gorilla Glue on the blue here is because it is more gap filling. If there's any place it's not fitting perfect to that rib, it's going to fill that gap really nicely. And then what I'm going to do is epoxy the top of the wing right here, that's the green part, and then put my nails in at the top. And then I'm going to put the epoxy on the bottom and nail the bottom. And then once all that's done, I'm going to put my rubber bands on. But I want you to imagine for a minute, hang on a minute. I want you to imagine for a minute, you got the leading edge and you just got a big old flat piece of wood here, okay? And I should have brought one of the leading edge ribs in here, crapola. So imagine this is the front of the wing, the rib, and right here is a big flat piece of plywood that you're going to now bend around like this. By having that memory in there, it's going to be a lot easier just to pull it down and nail it, because you're going to nail the front first, have epoxy in there, going to have Gorilla Glue in here. You're going to put a little bit mist of water, so it's going to start foaming up a little bit. Then you're going to pull it down to here, put that epoxy, and nail it on, and that's ready to go. Okay, then I most likely am going to flip the whole wing over and make sure the Gorilla Glue is foaming up on the bottom part there. Pull it closed, run the nails through it, then pull all the rubber bands on it, and then let that 4-foot section cure overnight, and then I'm going to do the next 4-foot section. So this is the reason I want the memory in this plywood, is to be as close, so I'm not having to bend it so hard. I'm not having to mangle it around to get it to fit, okay? So, so let me go back to this. So this is my plan for putting that on. Now, it could go to complete crap, people. It could be a stinking turd, but I think this is going to work. It's very close to the way I've done leading edges on some of my giant scale airplanes too. So here you can see the rubber bands. They're going to go where the ribs are. You can see the top of those blocks. And that's basically it, folks. So the next video I'm going to do is where I'm actually epoxying on the leading edge pieces, and I'll do a pretty in-depth video on that. Right now I'm just trying to keep, I'm trying to keep you guys up to speed on, I mean, I get so many people reaching out to me saying, can you do more detailed videos and more explanation on stuff? And folks, I'm trying. You know, it's really hard sometimes when I'm building something that I'm always looking 5 or 6 steps ahead of itself. And once I get into like step 2 or 3, I realize the other steps aren't going to work. And I don't want to have videos where I'm sitting there going forward and backwards, forward and backwards. I want to get it figured out, put a video together of how it's going to work for you all. Now, I may share with you what didn't work or some of the disasters I've come across. But I don't want to make a video that's a waste of time, or parts of it's a waste of time. So look, please subscribe and like this video. I'm trying to build my YouTube. If you've been a long-time follower, you know between my Patreon and my YouTube, I'm trying to make enough money to support my hobby. I know right now I am 100% into this ultralight, and my RC fans have given me some thumbs downs and sent me a little bit of hate email saying, oh, well, now you're out of RC. I'm not out of RC. Radio control. Look behind me, folks. Radio control aircraft, model aircraft are going to be part of my life until I die. But I can't wait to get this air bike done. I want to be flying it in the spring. And yes, I am a full-scale pilot. I haven't flown for like 20 years as pilot in command. I did have my tail dragger, or do have my tail dragger endorsement. So I know how to fly a tail dragger. And that's it, folks. You know, I always end my videos with saying, get kids involved in model aviation. And there's still a lot of that old fart mentality like, well, parents don't have time. If the parents got time to take a kid to soccer, to hockey, to football, to Little League, to the Boy Scouts or Girl Scouts, if you've got time to take your kids to all that, you got time to get them into model aviation. And the cool thing about model aviation, it's the gateway drug to being an engineer, a scientist, an astronaut, a fighter pilot, all kinds of cool stuff out there, okay? So it's just really important, folks, that we get our kids away from our cell phones and our video games and get them building with their hands, creating things. You know, I could rant forever about the reason there are so many kids that think they should own everything. Because when you look at a phone and you see on the phone that everybody's got something better than you, you start thinking that you deserve that without having to work for it. And we've got to get these kids to understand, if you build a model airplane and fly it, the reward you'll have is fantastic. But we've got to get that spark started, okay? There's all kinds of youth things within the Academy of Model Aeronautics that help do that too. So rock on, everybody. I'll see you next time. Stay safe and get a kid into aviation. For God's sakes, we've got to save the kids. See you next time, everybody. Have a great day. Bye-bye.